Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ringside Cinema. I am Money Mike, and with the NFL trade deadline being officially Tuesday when you see this video, I thought, what if there were some trades that Raw and SmackDown could make to improve their rosters heading into 2025? And I've come up with 5 trades, basically not I didn't want to complicate things too much, but just 5 trades to kind of shake up the rosters as we do head into 2025, in which Raw moves to Netflix and SmackDown will go to 3 hours on the USA Network. And we're going to start with a banger of a trade, ladies and gentlemen. Drew McIntyre going to SmackDown in exchange for the Street Profits and Andrade. Now here's the thing. Drew McIntyre is a big name, so SmackDown would have to give up a little bit more. Now again, I didn't want to complicate things too much. You could probably throw in another superstar here as part of this deal, like a 4-for-1 deal, but I think right now the Street Profits, they have done everything they can do on SmackDown. Obviously, with Bobby Lashley now in AEW, I think they need a new direction. I think they need a new change up a little bit. A new change of scenery. So for me, I have the Street Profits going to Monday Night Raw. And yes, I'm aware, Bianca Belair's on SmackDown. But as long as Bianca is the women's tag team champion that does go across both brands, then Bianca and Montez can still travel together even if the Street Profits are on Raw. And as for Andrade to me, he's did the series with Carmelo Hayes. He's did the whole thing with LA Knight. I think at this point, move him over to Raw and shake up the Intercontinental title picture scene over there. And for Drew McIntyre, the big reason for this whole trade is, barring something where he's involved with CM Punk and Seth Rollins for WrestleMania in a big triple threat match, this does allow Drew to go to SmackDown. And again, I talked about this before. I think Cody Rhodes needs some new challengers. Kevin Owens, he's potentially probably going to be facing Randy Orton when Randy Orton eventually turns heel. SmackDown, it does not have that many credible heels. And Drew McIntyre, I think when you look at the backstories of both Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes, and how they both left WWE to find themselves, and they both came back to have greater success, I think from a story perspective, that works so well as a rivalry. So I think Drew McIntyre going to SmackDown to give Cody Rhodes a new challenger ahead of the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, whatever. And again, that's even a WrestleMania match. Like, if you don't want to do Cody versus The Rock, Cody versus Randy Orton, you could run Cody versus Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania for the WWE Champion. Moving on, from a story perspective here, I think this trade makes a lot of sense. On SmackDown, we've seen Triple H say that he didn't want to give Randy Orton the match against Kevin Owens because he wanted to protect Randy Orton from Kevin Owens. We've seen Kevin Owens attack Cody Rhodes. So, the most logical sense in all of this is that Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce eventually work out a trade to send Kevin Owens to Monday Night Raw in exchange for Finn Balor, who is, I think, the internet wrestling community does not agree on anything, but it's safe to say that they do agree that the Judgment Day has run its course, and I think everybody needs to go their separate ways. And I think Finn Balor going to SmackDown. I compare it to Jey Uso going from SmackDown to Raw. Finn Balor going to SmackDown to become the Prince again. Bring that NXT character we saw when he went back to NXT a couple years ago. And if you really want, you have AJ Styles, you have Gallows, you have Anderson. You could do a mini Bullet Club if you really wanted to. But Finn Balor, I think you get him away from the Judgment Day stuff, and you let him kind of go back to being the Prince, and you let him kind of go on his own route, direction, or change the way that Jey Uso did. And you kind of book him the same way, where Finn goes to SmackDown and becomes his own person once again. So Finn Balor goes to SmackDown in exchange for Kevin Owens, which would set up Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for WrestleMania, when Kevin Owens would snap at Sami Zayn for teaming with the Bloodline, blah blah blah. You get where I'm going with that. Charlotte Flair goes to Monday Night Raw in exchange for Rhea Ripley. Now, I did add mid-card women to this trade as to kind of try to balance it out. I was going to do just Rhea for Charlotte, but I feel like when I look at the current booking, that I think they just need to kind of shake things up a bit, and especially if they do bring in the mid-card titles. So for SmackDown, you have Candice LeRae. She goes to Raw as a part of this deal, because right now Indy Hartwell just got released, and yes, she's been doing stuff with Nia Jax, but we already have Nia and Tiffany, so let's send Candice over to Raw. Maybe build her up a little bit over there on her own. Blair Davenport, who really hasn't done much on SmackDown, send her over to Raw. I talked about this yesterday in my video. I talked about this yesterday, Sunday morning, I don't even know. Sunday night, whatever you want to call it, when I uploaded it. But there's a real lack of depth right now in the women's division. So I'm sending Blair Davenport over to Raw to kind of boost up the Raw women's division. Maxine Dupree, I think the whole American Alpha thing has run its course. Let's send her over to SmackDown. Come up with a new gimmick. You can send Otis and Cesaro over there if you want. If you want to keep them together, that's fine. And then Lyra Valkyria, she's also a part of this deal, and she goes to SmackDown. I think this gives both Raw and SmackDown a new, fresh mid-card scene for when they do get these mid-card titles. Plus, I know WWE is going to want to book Charlotte versus Tiffany at some point, because they will be on the same brand, but I think you want to keep them apart. And I say that because when you look at the Crown Jewel Championship and its title versus title, personally, I think it would be a lot better if the Crown Jewel, the Women's Crown Jewel Championship, was Charlotte versus Tiffany next year, and that would be their first encounter. So yeah, let's keep Charlotte away from Tiffany. Let's move Rhea away from the Judgment Day. Give Rhea a fresh start on SmackDown, while also shaking up both mid-card women's scenes on both brands. With Monday Night Raw heading to Netflix, Netflix needs a big star, and that is why I'm going to give them Logan Paul in exchange for The Miz. And here's why. Now, obviously, right now the Miz is in a feud with the Wyatts, and I think right now what you could do is, from a story perspective, again, I'm trying to think of storyline reason for why these trades would happen. And I think Miz, who is tired of R-Truth, he's tired, and then you got the Wyatt situation, then you got Karrion Kross on his back. So Miz, he says, "Listen, I want to go to SmackDown. Like, trade me to SmackDown, get me away from all these guys, get me to SmackDown. I'm the A-lister." Let him go back to SmackDown, be the A-lister again, and while Monday Night Raw, in the meantime, would get Logan Paul, who has done everything he can do on SmackDown. He faced Roman Reigns for the undisputed title. He had the U.S. title. So to me, what else is there to do? I think at this point, with Raw going to Netflix, you need a big star, a social media star like him going to Raw to be a part of Raw on Netflix. So I think this is a fair trade. This gives Logan Paul a fresh opportunity to not only rebuild himself but fresh opponents. But again, that's even if WWE still wants to work with Logan Paul, because obviously there's a lot of controversy right now with Logan Paul. And I don't get into the whole YouTube drama stuff. Other channels do, so you can check out why. But essentially, will we see Logan Paul ever again in WWE? Maybe, maybe not. But I think you move him to Raw, give him a fresh start, and maybe have him go for the Intercontinental title at some point next year. And last but not least here, to keep this video short and not to overcomplicate things and completely just decimate the rosters, the final trade I would make is sending the New Day to SmackDown in exchange for DIY. Now, again, like I said, I want to keep this from a story perspective, right? Why trades would happen from a story perspective. Now, if you go back to SmackDown, the New Day, Kofi Kingston won the WWE Championship while he was on SmackDown. Xavier Woods and Big E won the gauntlet match to get Kofi Kingston the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania on SmackDown. Xavier Woods won the King of the Ring on SmackDown. They've had a lot greater success on SmackDown. And with the New Day not having quite much luck lately, Xavier and Kofi can kind of go, "Hey, look, Adam, we haven't had that much luck lately. We need a change of scenery. Maybe we can go, Kofi, I won the King of the Ring when I was on SmackDown, and Kofi Kingston can chime in and go, and I was WWE champion," and that would get Xavier kind of like, "Yeah," and me and Big E won the gauntlet match. I got you that match. You can keep that feud going, and you can do the whole 10-year anniversary thing with the New Day on SmackDown. But yeah, I think you do this trade. I think this gives us kind of more story depth to the New Day, where, like I said, a lot of the New Day's success happened on SmackDown. DIY, on the other hand, I think, they were on SmackDown. They won the SmackDown Tag Team titles already. So let's move on to Raw. Put them in the Raw Tag Team title scene. But what would you do if you were WWE? What trades would you make to freshen up the rosters heading into 2025 as Raw heads to Netflix and SmackDown becomes 3 hours? Comment below, let me know, and hit that like and subscribe button, as I will have more weekly wrestling content right here at Ringside Cinema.
Lights down, time to go. Cheers for heroes we know. Ringside forever bold. Wrestling never gets old.